All right, I guess I can't do this horizontal. So it's been a while since we've been live, or since I've been live. I tried to do it through the computer, and there's a new, entirely complicated system for using the computer, so I have to figure that out after the fact. We'll get to the bottom of that, because this is obviously something we need to deal with. But anyway, so the technology has changed. It's been some time since we were live here in the Ownstream community. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to just chat for a second here while Theresa comes back. She was out in the van, so we have our Sprinter van where Sophia does some work. Where Theresa does some work while just to give her some privacy to do calls and things. So anyway, so she's been out there, but I think she just walked in. Hi, Gail. Thanks for being with us. Really, really excited to talk to you guys today.
That's okay.
Hi, Diana. Okay. Do you want to pull your chair up?
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's awesome to see you guys. We're really excited to talk to you about this. You already told them why we did that, right?
I haven't gotten into any details yet. I've just been kind of filibustering here while we figure this out. So, do you want to get your chair?
For the past couple weeks, we've been both feeling a real urge to have conversations with people and be sharing more again. Hi, Corey. Put out a channel again, basically, given what's going on in the world. And we've been both feeling a real call to service, like many people are right now, and have been asking ourselves why, what can we do? And we started to feel that it might be relevant again to be doing interviews and opening up a channel for conversation. A few things have come up. One of them is that we've been tossing around the idea of starting the podcast again, but maybe in a different form, which is live interviews in the Ownstream community and on YouTube by video. And we've been thinking a lot, of course, as everybody is, about what's going on in the world now and how a lot of information's coming out from everyone, from a variety of channels. But we really felt like putting together in one place a conversation series about what's happening, what is this shift on the earth happening, what is the coronavirus, what's really happening, and also, what's happening on the earth and what's to come, what's the transformation coming, and that those are the conversations we really want to start having, and I'll let Stephen take it from there.
So yeah, we Theresa and I are really, really good together as interviewees, and we have a wide reach. And, the Ownstream podcast, we did this for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Did about 70 episodes, and it was a great experience for us. And mainly our focus at that time was talking to people who were kind of living in an alternative way, whether that was they were living full-time in a van or they were living kind of totally off the grid on a farm in the mountains of Costa Rica, or whether they had kind of realized themselves in this full-blown way and kind of lived within the system but not of the system, as some guests, whether they were all kinds of backgrounds, like a lot of food and diet, a lot of alternative medicine, a lot of these things. And anyway, so we have a wide reach. We have a lot of experience with this. And the podcast itself, because I think it was such a wide canvas that we were trying to kind of play within and paint, that the interest was very diffuse. Hi, Alicia. And the topics were very, very wide. And so when we started looking at kind of like how much time it took to produce a podcast every week, which was about 10 plus hours, most of that me and a production team that we had assembled, and we started looking at the actual kind of consistent viewership many of our audiences were huge audiences for certain interviews that of people who had big followings, but oftentimes, the kind of the stable audience wasn't really enough to merit the amount of time and energy we were putting into it. So that's number one. And number two is, of course, the diffuse kind of topics we were covering. So we kind of put it to the side for a while. And particularly in the last few weeks, we have started kind of feeling like, gosh, we want to be holding conversations with people who are really at the forefront of understanding, first of all, what is happening, kind of past the noise of the media and the fear that's promoted a lot on social media, even amongst our own community. So there's that. We'd like to hear from people and have conversations with people, kind of what is really kind of behind all that, what is the real thing occurring and unfolding here. And then, as important, can we digest this experience and learn from it? And what can we do going forward to reshape our own lives, the lives of our communities, etc.? Because there is a lot to take from this experience. There's a lot of learning and lessons to uncover that we need to support each other on fully digesting and moving forward in some cases, perhaps radically different way. So we're going to be talking to lots of different people. We've made a kind of a list and a sort of initial look at who we could talk to about these things. Everything from people who kind of are, some of the same topics that we were doing before, but like people who live totally off the grid, people who have formed communities that really work and function well. There's a lot of examples of communities that have kind of dissolved, but there are some out there that have really thrived. There are locations around the planet where people are really thriving and doing things very, very differently. We want to talk to them. We want to talk to people kind of in the immediate on how, maybe lifestyle things that we can do immediately that can help us get through this initial kind of crisis phase of dealing with this sickness that's being spread around. People who are designers of earthships, people who are just living in ways that aren't necessarily kind of out of balance with nature. I think ultimately what we're seeing is an imbalance with kind of the rhythm of nature and how we're really meant to live. And what we want to do is kind of look at ways that we can return to that intentionally, consciously, clearly, so that when something like this happens again, and my opinion is like this is not the event. This is maybe the beginning of a sequence or a series of events that could take some time. I think there's this kind of wishful thinking in the back of my mind. I detect it in others perhaps that, this is finally happening. And yes, I do think it's finally happening, but I think that there is going to be a timeline here that will perhaps be a little longer than maybe what we would kind of hope for, or potentially hope for. It could be some time. And so making shifts and adjustments and being flexible and malleable right away seems very wise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Stephen said, but it's kind of amazing. It feels like this natural outgrowth of what we were doing before with Ownstream, but I think he talked about this, but when we were doing Ownstream, it felt like we were on such a roll and such a momentum for a while with just like pursuing our interests and conversations and getting great feedback, and then the momentum stopped, and we just thought, okay, this is meant to stop now. But what's fascinating, one of the many, many things that's fascinating right now is that it feels like those conversations are more relevant now than ever, because it's not just that people are choosing to go do something different from the mainstream or choosing a freedom lifestyle, but it's actually like the world is now changing and transforming, and we are being called, I believe, into a different way of living as a society, including not making plans when you also have your little babies around. It's hard to make plans. So we're being called into a different way of living, and it feels like whether that happens now or in 2 months or 6 months or a few years, it's happening, the shift is happening. And I know we personally feel we were interested before. Obviously, we lived in a van and we were exploring creating a community in Costa Rica, and have done some things online as well. We now feel, Stephen and I personally, called more than ever to be creating a different way of living. So we're excited to host some conversations on these topics. So both about, what's happening, what is the shift, what can we expect from people who are really tuned in to these questions and thinking and putting their hearts on them all the time.
I think she's saying love bomb. Are you saying love bomb?
That's really what it's about, is a love bomb anyway. It's all about a love bomb.
Yeah, so like talking to people right now about kind of what's happening.
It's a love bomb.
And tools and ways that we can kind of be together and move forward. But then kind of looking past this, what can we do? How can we live? How can we shift into a kind of a more authentic relationship with nature and with each other that's not based on competition and division and separation? So that's kind of the main thing. Like we're going to start these conversations next week. We're going to, we've got a lot of people in mind, but we want your feedback. If you could post below any ideas you have of people we should talk to. They can have huge followings. They don't have to have huge followings. This is not about that. We're not here to promote anybody specifically, though we think some people who already have followings because they have really something really powerful to say. So we're going to be reaching out to them, and some guests that you'll be familiar with that we've talked to before we'll be inviting back to have these conversations with us. And we want to do them in Facebook, if I can figure out this live software deal, so that, or perhaps Zoom, so that we can interact, so you can have access to these people and ask questions and be in conversation with them along with us. We'll have a sort of first kind of burst of things that we'll talk about, but then there will be time for Q&A with people of this community, because we feel like the Ownstream community are people who have gravitated to this message over the years, who have been with us for some time and who align with this mission, this interest in living in a way that is kind of outside of this box. And now the box is under the microscope. The box is indicted through this experience as being like actually not the optimum way of living. We've known this for years, and I'm sure you have too, but now it's very clear, like, whoa, this has to shift right away. So the urgency has given rise to this impetus to have these conversations. And I know Theresa has an interest in kind of sharing about another thing that's really kind of come through to her that I think is super relevant now too, that kind of piggybacks on this concept of these conversations.
Yeah, another idea that I had, which I feel is so obvious in a way that I'm like, is it already happening? So let me know if it is that I feel like there's a real call right now. I see a lot of people offering services. Okay, 1 minute, kiddo. I see a lot of people offering services and things that they have. We all have different skill sets. And this idea came up to me when Stephen started talking about our carpenter friend and said, is he teaching carpentry online? And I said, no, I don't think he does that. He was a math teacher. I said, but he should teach carpentry online. And then I started thinking about how we could be, there's a new opportunity here as the financial system, whatever, I don't know to what degree it's going to collapse, or to what degree the dollar and other currencies are going to be rendered in question, and possibly, I do believe in some years will completely change that system, but it's coming into question. And so an idea for a barter system, basically, online, where people exchange, good kiddo, good, an opportunity where people exchange their services online. And so I'm going to create that separately. I think we'll create it. Maybe we'll start it in this group, but we'll also create a new group for this, where basically I think the way we're going to organize it is to start on Facebook. I think like a web system, if it takes off, it would create more of like a website. I imagine it like kind of like a sort of like Craigslist meets Airbnb, but basically a way for us to exchange our services online. Yeah, it does seem really evident that this is the time for us to be able to say, this is what I know, and this is what I know, and we all have a piece of the puzzle, and what can I offer you? And Stephen and I personally have been for a long time interested in homesteading and everything involved in that, in building our own home and growing our own food, which we're doing in a very small way right now, and learning how to can our fruits and vegetables, etc., live off the grid. And there are many, many other things that people are interested in, can share, but I know that this work is inner and outer, so I know so many meditation teachers and healers and people offering things, so we want to bring that all together in a place where you can exchange services and barter, and certainly, paying would be an option too, or donation based, but want to open up that flow, because I think that's coming. And so if we can kind of pilot that together just as a community and people we know right now, I think that's a really exciting idea.
Teresa's learning a rule about theater, and Andrew just joined us. He knows this rule too. Never bring a dog or a baby on stage with you, because they upstage you every time.
That's why we were trying to do this with me in the van, because we knew that we weren't going to be able to do this today without Sophia, but that's okay. So anyway, yeah, so those are the things that we wanted to say. Yeah, I know, it is funny. Those are the things we wanted to say, that like these are the ways that we're feeling called into service. And I feel like at this time, I've heard this from a lot of friends, that there's a deeper, stronger call for service happening right now as things are shifting, and there's a lot of confusion, and people are starting to be in pain and not know what's going on. And we don't know the timeline of what's coming ahead. We all gotta love Bob. Good. Good. Thank you. We don't know what the timeline of when greater shifts are happening or when other truths are going to be revealed. But we do know that a new earth is being called for. And so many of us have begun the work of inner transformation and have begun ways of serving others. And there's such a wealth out there. Thank you, Gail.
Definitely.
There's such a wealth out there of ways that we can support each other. And one of the ways we've personally felt called is a couple of the ways are sharing that message, kind of broadcasting that message, those messages, bringing people together for community. That's something we've been doing on an ongoing basis. And I think those are ways that we'll want to continue in this new, as things are shifting.
So yeah, two big things. We're going to start with the conversations. And I'm just reading Andrew.
Your comments are great, guys.
I love having Sophia on these. I know it's hard for Theresa to talk and be like as attentive as she likes to be with her. That can be challenging, but to me it's great. I sort of like it. But so anyway, these two things, and they will. I think we're going to have our first kind of conversation next week. And Gail, maybe we could talk to you about the technology in and around integrating Zoom with Facebook Live. But we'll figure that out.
That would be great.
And we'll have a guest. We'll announce that guest sometime in the middle of the week. And we'll, particularly now, we'll be talking a lot about the virus and ways to kind of go through this, what to listen to, what not to listen to, things to do, things not to do, all that stuff. And then as we get going, I think week by week we'll kind of just feel into what is relevant to be talked about. But I think the general arc of kind of talking about what's happening now, and then talk about like going forward, what do we see, what visions are we having, and then what can we do to kind of create those. Because I think the last thing I think that's important to say is that, 2-3 years ago when we started the Ownstream podcast, I think there was a margin of people, a pretty slim margin of people who felt an urgency to shift, to change, to move out of the old paradigms into new paradigms. I think we felt that to some degree, but they got kind of pulled back into the mainstream in certain ways, which is fine. That's normal. But now I think the urgency for shifting is going to not only be amped up in those of us who felt some semblance of that before, but many, many more will be feeling that too. So as you think of people that might be interested in this conversation, please invite them to the Ownstream community so they can be involved in a part of that. And I imagine, I think we have about 700 people in this community now, but I'm sure folks who aren't involved who might benefit or be interested in these conversations that we're going to be creating.
And people that can contribute, that would have something to offer, whether it's that they're tuned into what's going on in the world right now and would have something to share, or that they have something to share about ways of living and ways of creating a new society. There's many, many things that could be shared as relevant to that. So please let us know. Yeah, I think it's a fascinating time, because I think many of us, including Stephen and I for sure, have been thinking for a long time, like what could catalyze a bigger boom of this awakening in people. And we never could have, as everything is perfect, we never could have conceived that something like this would be a catalyst in such that it's causing a lot of pain and restriction of people in their outer lives, and a forced, to some degree, inwardness, but certainly a questioning or a cessation of the things that have made us comfortable in our human lives for a time being. So it's opening up that kind of that kind of confrontation with self, small self, and possibly a revelation of, or an encounter with larger self, that can open up a new ring of people, or a new, I don't even know how to describe it, just a new opportunity for reaching people, as by some definition things are being called into question everywhere. And it won't, everyone, it's not like we think that necessarily everyone's going to change. Hi, Diego. Not that we think everyone's going to change in this. We've heard all kinds of predictions about how long this is going to last, how long the quarantine's going to last, and what institutions are going to come to a halt, what's going to happen with the financial system, and definitely excited to see. But we're excited to kind of be a part of that as it's rolling out. So, be with us here. Please send suggestions, and we look forward to connecting more often.
Yeah, next Friday we'll have our first conversation, and we're excited to get into it. So we'll keep you posted about who that is and what time. But next Friday it'll happen. Anything else?
No.
Thank you all.
This has been
so fun.
Good to be here with you.
It's nice to it's nice to try to squeeze into the tiny slim
little
tiny
iPhone frame
screen together.
Nice to see you.
It's been
here,
a long
Christine.
time since we kind of engaged the Ownstream community, so it's really, really nice to kind of be back into this, and be back into this kind of energetic space of kind of moving forward in visions and transformation and building really a new society that is more in harmony with nature, each other, and those great forces that guide us. So love you all. We'll be in touch with more soon.
Bye.
Bye.